Catbird is a charming platformer released by the developer Ryumi in 2017 for mobile on Android and iOS. On the surface, it looks simple enough. You can walk, you can jump, you can glide, you push boxes and press buttons, you dodge obstacles, and what the hell is happening here? But people have been speedrunning it basically ever since it came out, so there's actually a surprisingly rich history to discuss. There are 4 worlds available to play in the game, but the record progression we're going to focus on in this video is the No Major Glitches category in the second world, Grasi. In the past, the category was just named any %, but various ways have been found to confuse the in-game timer using, well, glitches, so the mods opted to rename the official leaderboard categories with the acronym NMG added to them, while moving the any % runs with no restrictions to a category extensions leaderboard. With all of that context out of the way, let's go through the world level by level, using the first ever record set on it as a reference. It all starts with Grasi. No, that is actually what the first level in the world is called. Quite an original name, don't you think? Just a few trampolines and avoiding the tiny, powerful jumping enemies, and you reach the portal which progresses you to the next level. Nothing special here. Next is cannon fodder, and cannons are introduced here. They fire bullets on a set cycle, and they are lethal, so beware. There's also some more trampolines, a platform windmill, and a vertical climb to the top where the portal lies. Standard platforming gameplay. Box Stomp is intimidating for a casual player, but you learn the cycles for the scary death squares eventually. Press the button to unlock the barrier blocks, and head towards the portal. Next up is the breaker, and there are more scary death squares, but the level isn't nearly as claustrophobic as the previous ones, so it's less tense. Grab the key at the top of the platforming bit while avoiding those beetle enemies, and you're good to enter the portal after another trial of boxes. The ambush is a simple level. Careful of the cannons which fire at you from both sides as you push a box onto a button to remove barrier blocks. Key train is also quite simple. It's just a matter of outpacing the trail of blocks that disappear one by one because you touched the key. Crate race is another level where you outpace the level design. This is in order to avoid facing the wrath of the 3 cannons that await past the button which disables your safety net. Don't let the box land on it before you're prepared. Headmush is a breather level. Jump off the boxes and glide in order not to get crushed by the low ceiling, and keep on keeping on. Blocks of Doom is more or less an auto-scroller. The boxes provide a non-lethal area to rest on during the slow cycles of the big spiky rectangles. Push the box onto the button at the top left of the level, then backtrack and press the other button near the portal to advance. Vertigo is a casual player's nightmare, containing spiky ball windmills, a cannon, a jumpy guy, a spiky ceiling, and an unstable ceiling with 2 enemies there to boot. Definitely one to remember. Spike Bite is another to remember. If only there was a faster way to push boxes so we wouldn't have to deal with this incredibly frightening floor cycle. Ride the spiky block to the portal area once you push the other button to reveal a box to stand on, and you can move on. In Hush Kitty, unfortunately for us, the key platform is too tall to jump on from the start, so you have to detour all the way around and face some frightening obstacles which include spiky ball windmills and beetles. The mechanism is basically just a drop to the bottom, but there are a ton of lethal obstacles in the way. As a casual player, you will hate this level with a burning passion. The penultimate level of the world, Hop Stop. You better keep your cool because this level will test the trampoline, cannon, and alternating spike floor mechanics heavily. After the last confined section, you've reached the portal to the world boss. In Mad Totems, the boss shoots projectiles at you which are aimed at wherever your position was when the projectile was fired. You have to activate 2 levers to drop bombs on the totem head, which knocks the boss down a level each time, and repeat this process 3 times in total before the barrier blocks vanish and you're granted access to the ending portal. That was a breakdown of Grasi using the 9-minute 51-second and 733-millisecond run performed by Oxknifer on September 23, 2017, and it was part of an all-worlds run used to submit the game to speedrun.com. Hopefully, this analysis allows you to understand the world much better now. I should mention that the catbird almost always moves at a fixed rate when going horizontally or downwards, so apart from the obvious time saves like not dying or memorizing where to go next in the level, minimizing airtime between jumps while platforming upwards is what separates the decent runners from the pros. That also happens to be, more likely than not, how faster cycles are reached in this game. So, needless to say, there's a lot to be desired when it comes to optimizing the run at this point. The next run submitted would be by Silent Onion, or Scion for short, a few days later on October 17th. It clocked in at 8 minutes and 5 seconds. This run was the first submitted to the leaderboard to use the in-game time trial feature, and I will refer to future runs by that display from now on whenever possible, despite many runs also having a real-time display on the side. As a result, it's really an 8-minute and 7-second run. I should discuss the glaring elephant in the run. Yes, the colors are inverted, but Scion didn't know why and how to fix it. It's a very cool color palette though, so enjoy it while you can, as no other record shares this aesthetic. By the way, the run improved upon Oxknifers by, most notably, dying way less. Ox's run had 10 deaths. This had 2. It also featured some more refined movement and level knowledge than the previous record, which resulted in less hesitation for many of the more intimidating areas of the run. This run wasn't close to anything special, but it was a marked improvement from the previous record. That isn't it for the massive time cuts though, as just 10 days later, a runner named JoeCloud31, who now goes by NFP Gaming on YouTube, would get a 7-minute, 9-second, and 867 millisecond run during an all-world run with a brand new world at the time, Zibza. The platforming showcased in this run was phenomenal for the time, and it's where most of the time save came from. JoeCloud still didn't manage a deathless run, but seeing as the only death happened near the beginning of the second level, I'd say that's close enough. There was clearly actual practice putting to memorizing what to do in each level and figuring out which strategies and cycles to use, especially in the boss stage, as it featured a perfect 8 fireball cycle fight and being positioned on the right lever after the 3rd bomb dropped. This is possible by starting the fight on the left lever, so you head to the right lever to spawn in a bomb. While the bomb is igniting, you go back to the left, and you'll end up near the barrier blocks by the 6th and final flick, so you can go past them as soon as they disappear. For reference, Ox's run had a 9-cycle fight, while Scion had a 10-cycle, and they both ended on the left lever. On a side note, there's one person I should talk about that's extremely important, and that's Nefarious Monkey. Although they didn't hold the Grasi record at any point in time, or really ever run it in the first place, they were a prominent individual level runner. As a result, they were able to contribute to the progression by introducing various strategies that would be added to the run later on. Things such as the Vertigo fast cycle, where fast platforming is needed in order to reach it, as well as the clean descent in the mechanism, where the only times they fluttered was to avoid ramming straight into a spike instead of slowly floating downwards. A lot of the innovations that the early days of this category had can be attributed to Monkey's ingenuity, confidence, and just speed, to put it plainly. So that covers some optimizations that would eventually sneak their way into full world runs, and by this point, people such as Oxknifer were analyzing runs and noticing that some platforms in certain levels, such as Cannon Fodder, Keytrain, and Hopstop, didn't actually need to be used in order to progress. Therefore, they could be skipped, saving a bit of time. Anyways, back on track. That 7-minute 9-second run by JoeCloud was a segue into their next run performed on November 7th, which used the time trial feature. It clocked in at 6 minutes and 43 seconds in-game time, with 2 deaths in total. One in the mechanism, and one in Hopstop. Fuck. How did they improve despite dying an extra time compared to their last run? New strategies, and in general being more daring with their movement.
One notable example being the early button press in Crate Race, where you activate the button yourself and weave through the cannonballs that fire at you, so you don't have to wait for the box to press it. The days of hesitating when faced with some cannons or imminent spikes were coming to an end, and the skill level of players would only rise from here. Grasi would remain dormant for a few months until someone decided they wanted to challenge Joe Cloud's record. That person was Mr. Uppercase T, who goes by Upper Casserole nowadays. This guy is an absolute legend. He would go on to achieve the record on the first and most popular world, Marta, and he made a comprehensive tutorial of said world with the strategies at the time. Not only that, but he would become a moderator for the game leaderboards for a period of time. Oh, but I'm not done with the praise yet, as Upper would run Catbird at various speedrunning marathons, including AGDQ 2019. Yeah, that's a pretty big deal, and was a monumental occasion in the community. But, back to his humble beginnings. He joined the Rayumi Speedruns Discord on January 7th, 2018, and then proceeded to slay the Grasi record a mere 4 days later, obtaining a time of 6 minutes and 37 seconds in-game time. So maybe they weren't such humble beginnings after all. Upper decided to forego some strategies while on the record hunt, such as the early button in Crate Race, and the fast cycle in Vertigo, but he saved time over Joe Cloud by having the very first deathless record, in addition to flutter pushing the box in Spike Bite. This is performed by doing a jump big enough to avoid the spiky floor, but not so big that you go on the box, and then holding the jump button to float slowly back down. This strategy saved an entire platform cycle, which comes to roughly 7 seconds, so that's pretty huge. Anyway, Upper wasn't done with the category yet, as you may have expected, since, like I said, there were still strategies that were being left out. So what did Upper do over the course of 4 months? Let's find out.
That's a lot better. As you just saw in the montage, Upper pushed Grasi down significantly, all the way down to 6 minutes and 12 seconds in-game time. The only major tricks that weren't in that run included the fast cycles in the Breaker and Box Stomp, the latter of which still isn't used in runs today because of its sheer difficulty and inconsistency, and the 7 Fireball cycle in Mad Totems. Turns out, if you do the levers fast enough with the updated flicking pattern, the boss will end up dying just before it shoots out the 8th Fireball. As a result, I apologize for my error earlier in the video when I called an 8 cycle perfect. I just simply forgot that there was a faster method when I edited that segment. Also, the unstable ceiling in Vertigo only detects for a collision from the bottom, not from the top, and the sides happen not to have hitboxes, so you can clip through the spikes with no repercussions, which explains why Upper didn't die there. That was really weird. Let's move on. Unfortunately, Upper's domination wouldn't last for very long, as just 2 weeks later, a runner known as Paper LP would improve upon the record by 3 seconds. they would implement the fast breaker cycle, as well as performing the first level fast enough such that they were able to jump over all of the mini crushers. Yes, I've made up my mind on what I'm calling these cute but deadly creatures. Also, my goodness, if that isn't a ballsy way to do that section in Vertigo. However, no run can be perfect, and Paper chickened out of the regular cycle in Hop Stop, losing a few seconds. That left a window of opportunity for anyone to snatch the record for themselves, and it would in fact be a familiar face. It's supper. Paper's record would last an astonishing 8 months, but Upper simply couldn't resist taking back what was rightfully his, so he would get a run of 6 minutes and 8 seconds in-game time. This run used Paper's Grasi optimization, and he got the hop stop cycle that they missed. But he missed the fast cycle in the breaker yet again. Surely something else was done to shave off that second, and that would be correct. But it's not something very eye-catching or anything. Let's see if you notice it. Did you see it? Accelerating downwards while you're already falling is much faster than if you just walk off a platform, so as a result, Upper does a slight jump before the catbird would normally start falling naturally to save fractions of a second each time it's performed. This is another trait that separates the top runners from the rest, since it's difficult to perform well multiple times in succession. Needless to say, the platforming in this record set the standard for future runs to come, and the potential for abusing this simple mechanic was immense.
The ensuing record would be set by a brand new player named Big Unit on March 10th, 2019. He got a 1 second improvement, bringing the record down to 6 minutes and 7 seconds in-game time. There was nothing overly discernible from the previous record, just the first ever 7 fireball cycle in Mad Totems, and not attempting the extra platform skip in Cannon Fodder that Upper missed and lost time at.
But a new and somewhat controversial strategy would be discovered shortly before Big Unit's run by Big Unit himself. He didn't use it here due to people being uncertain whether or not it'd be allowed on the leaderboards, but future runs feature it quite prominently. This trick would be the catalyst for a Grasi revolution, as the time save potential from this simple oversight by the developer was massive. Let me introduce you to the strategy known as Pause and Play.
Pause and Play, commonly shortened to P&P, is a trick where one pauses while an object is slowing down to switch directions during a cycle. When unpausing, the object switches directions immediately if the pause was timed correctly. This effectively cuts out a sizable distance the object had to travel, which opens up the possibility of shorter fast cycles if that makes sense. However, it's not a trick everyone likes to use, but in a world as cycle-based as Grasi, it's absolutely necessary in order to save multiple seconds. At first, people weren't very familiar with the mechanics and only used it sparingly. Big's 6 minute and 5 second in-game time run, which was the next record performed on March 21st, only attempted it in Blocks of Doom and Spike Bite to varying degrees of success. As you'll see later on though, this trick could be utilized in many more places. Big's last hurrah would come in the form of a 6 minute flat, achieved 2 days later on March 23rd, 2019. He would maintain restricting use of P&P to Blocks of Doom and Spike Bite for one reason or another, but he improved the timing of the trick substantially, and it's where most of the time save came from. That, and hitting the fast cycle in the breaker, which the 605 run lacked. He would continue to run Grasi down the line, but this would be his final record. We're starting to approach the final stretch now, and this is where records get wild. The next individual that would snatch the record is someone known as Psycode. When he arrived to the Catbird speedrunning scene on February 1st, 2019, I don't think anyone could have predicted how dominant he would become in this niche cat game. He optimized as many individual levels as he could, which translated over to full world category skill, and proceeded to demolish world record after world record. So it came as a surprise to no one when he set the next Grasi record, the first ever sub-6, with a time of 5 minutes and 56 seconds. This run just performed P&P much better than Big Unit's former record, and due to size IL grinding, his platforming was absolutely heavenly. A far cry from the old days where everyone just did full height jumps, and or hesitated to progress through the levels. Still, P&P was restricted to just Blocks of Doom and Spikebite again. So, obviously, the next step would be to expand the utilization of the strategy, and that's exactly what Sidecode did. 3.5 months later, on July 30th, 2019, Sai would blow everyone out of the water by performing a legendary speedrun. During that time, despite being on a hiatus from Grasi, he had been actively running other categories and further optimizing individual levels throughout that entire time, so his skill had just increased since his 556. That is to say, brace yourself for a near flawless accumulation of almost 2 years of strategy development and friendly competition. I present to you this magnificent performance. This 551 had every single optimization known to the community at the time, barring of course the ridiculous fastest box stomp cycle, along with the best showcase of pause and play so far. Using it in Headmush, Blocks of Doom, Spikebite, and Hush Kitty to its near fullest potential. The run was an entire 8 seconds faster than any other competitor could accomplish. It seemed impossible to beat, and honestly, this would be the last record on Grasi. At least, it would, if it weren't for one of the most dedicated and skilled speedrunners I know. You may know her from her various Deltarune world records. This is Crystal SRL. There's one thing you need to learn about Crystal, and that is, if she sets her mind on a goal, you better believe she's going to smash that goal. By the time she started to grind Grasi, it had been over 1.5 years since size 551, so there had to have been some kind of development over that period of time, right? Right. This is the box slide. The setup seems inconspicuous enough, until zoop! Both the box and the catbird fly across the screen. This trick is presumably pixel perfect, and we have no idea how it works. Our most viable theory is somehow by positioning ourselves on the last pixel of the box, the catbird enters a state of both falling and standing at the same time, so by moving, we're effectively traveling at the speed at which we would fall, but horizontally instead of downwards. Very weirdly though, this trick only works with any semblance of consistency when the box is being pushed to the left, not to the right. But that's beside the point. Needless to say, this discovery was huge and there was a mad dash to break records all over. This is where Crystal comes in. She wanted to apply this new knowledge to practice, and there are 2 levels with pushable boxes in Grasi, the Ambush and Spikebite. The IL record for the Ambush sits 2.5 seconds ahead of the fastest run without box slide, and it saves another full cycle in Spikebite, which, to jog your memory, is 7 seconds cut. Though probably less because of pause and play abuse, but anyway, clearly there's a lot of time to be saved here, so let's just get on with seeing the current record already.
And that, my friends, is the current record on Grasi NA% no major glitches. A time of 5 minutes and 47 seconds by Crystal SRL, performed on March 6th, 2021.
This run is by no means perfect,
Seriously, it's not.
but it stood for around 1.25 years, so that has to mean something, right? I have to tell you though, Big Unit actually achieved the 547 shortly before Crystal did, but it was sadly unrecorded, and as the old adage goes, no vid, no did. So, for all intents and purposes, Crystal holds a 4-second untied. I have no doubt that either of them are capable of lowering the record though, so even if the story ends here for now, it is by no means a closed book. After all, there's still the incredulous fastest cycle in Box Stomp out there, as well as a faster hop stop cycle discovered by yours truly, which saves roughly 2.5 seconds. There's a segmented run for Grasi compiled by this guy from 1.5 years ago that comes to 5 minutes, 34 seconds, and 367 milliseconds in real time, but that's obviously outdated. The current sum of the individual levels in Grasi totals to 4 minutes, 32 seconds, and 716 milliseconds, and add 1 minute and 800 milliseconds to compensate for loads to get a final segmented run of 5 minutes, 33 seconds, and 516 milliseconds real time. But time spent in the pause menu because of PNP isn't deducted in the IL records, so give or take a few seconds. This indicates that theoretically, all the way down to a sub 540 is extremely possible for this category, but whether or not we'll ever get there is another question. Perhaps one day, but only time will tell. In closing, I'd like to thank Oxknifer for helping research the progression, as well as giving me criticism and motivation for this project. He was responsible for kickstarting many of the most active mobile communities out there today, so my thanks goes much deeper than just helping me with this video. Leo also gave me criticism, so thanks to him as well. I'd also like to thank everyone who allowed me to use their footage in the video. This video wouldn't be possible without you guys, so I appreciate you all deeply. And of course, finally, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. I know I said my charge progression could be the last I'd ever do, but I've kinda been bitten by the content creation bugs, so hopefully there'll be more of these in the future. I doubt I'll be consistent with uploads of this kind, but do expect me to continue making videos like this. And rest assured, I'll use my better quality phone mic from start to finish next time, so don't you worry. Until then, have a good one.